You're listening to the Baumbastic Podcast with Andrew Ellis on Inside Arkansas.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Baumbastic Podcast presented by Inside Arkansas and hosted by Andrew Ellis. Happy Tuesday to everyone. It is a May 6th. It is Tuesday afternoon, about 3:30. It's a little bit muggy outside. The clouds have returned to Northwest Arkansas. The good news is there is no parade to be rained on. There is no baseball to get canceled. The Arkansas Razorbacks will not be back in action until Friday night when they make their trip down to Baton Rouge, Louisiana to take on the LSU Tigers. Should be a really fun series. I'm looking forward to breaking that series down. Looking forward to giving you guys the rundown of the matchup and how they stack up. Should be just a fun weekend of baseball. Can't wait to be down there. Of course, I'm from the state of Louisiana. Going to go see some buddies down there. Looking forward to that. I'll have boots on the ground giving you the coverage of the series. And like I said, it's going to be a good matchup. Sometimes it can be a little bit tough to sell you guys on how fun the series is going to be and how tough of a test the Razorbacks are going to be facing. I don't think that's going to be the case this weekend against LSU. I don't think that's going to be the case next weekend against Tennessee. Wasn't the case last week when Arkansas was playing the number one team in the country. And so that's always fun when you don't have to wonder about the level of competition. Don't have to wonder if it's going to be a fun atmosphere. It's going to be that way in the box. And so looking forward to breaking that down. Today was supposed to was hoping maybe today would be the Kendall Rogers episode of the Baumbastic Podcast. Kendall may be ducking me a little bit. I'm just going to be honest with you. I say that somewhat jokingly, trying to get it lined up. We'll see how it works with his schedule. Of course, he's got a lot going on this time of year, but I look forward to possibly hearing from Kendall Rogers and hearing his take, not only on Arkansas, but sort of how they fit into this whole College World Series picture, how they fit in the SEC, comparing them to some other squads in the country. Would love to hear his take on some other teams that are going to be Arkansas's top competition for that elusive national title. And so hopefully we'll get him on the show sometime soon. Tomorrow, I do have a little bit of a special guest for you guys. You probably don't know who he is unless you're like a real sicko college baseball ball knower. But he pitched at LSU. He's one of my best friends in the world. A dear friend of mine. Look forward to hearing from him. I love hearing from him all the time, but we'll be excited to introduce him to you guys, and you guys get to hear from him. He pitched at LSU, my buddy Matthew Beck, got his first career win at Baum-Walker Stadium back in 2017. And so look forward to getting his perspective on this rivalry, this LSU team, LSU's program, some of the players he faced at Arkansas, some of the SEC players he faced in his career. He played 5 years in the SEC at LSU, is actually one of the few people who got the number 8. You know how LSU does that. That's kind of like their thing. In football, it's 7. In baseball, it's 8. He was awarded number 8, and then he tore his UCL and missed the entire year. So a little bit tough, but he is one of the few. But anyways, I look forward to hearing from him tomorrow. Look forward to having him on the show. And like I said, introducing you guys to my boy. Hopefully you'll like hearing from him as well. I'm looking forward to that. And then, of course, we'll be back on Thursday to really break down the series, the matchup, the pitching, the hitting, who's hot, who's not, who do we need to look out for, all that stuff. So appreciate you guys for joining me. Looking forward to a great weekend of content. This is going to be a little bit more laid back of an episode, probably a little bit shorter. I say that a lot. Probably going to be a little bit shorter. Hopefully you guys can already see how long it is, so you'll know whether or not I'm lying. Hopefully I'm able to get it down in under 30 minutes or so, but I want to take a look at some NCAA tournament projections for Arkansas, see where things are, at least leaning towards or trending towards at this point in the season with 2 weeks left in the regular season. We're starting to get a lot of, pretty much every week, every outlet is doing some version of a projected field of 64. And if you guys remember on Monday's show, I told you everybody was freaking out about rankings. Perhaps that's why Kendall Rogers is ducking me, because you guys were yelling at him so much about Arkansas being number 7 in the D1 baseball poll. But I did say on Monday's show, I was saying there's no sense in freaking out about the rankings and top 25. Nobody argues about the AP poll in March Madness in the month of February. You're not arguing about where Arkansas is ranked in the USA Today coaches poll. You're worried about where Lenardi has Arkansas, where all the top bracketologists have Arkansas. We're now at that point in baseball season where forget the rankings. They are just merely a power ranking that fluctuates week to week and doesn't really mean much. Where you're projected for the NCAA tournament, how your resume stacks up, that's really what we need to be focusing on. And really for Arkansas, they've done a lot of work where, it's not like they need a ton. Like we're at a point where I'm pretty confident Arkansas is locked in as a national seed. Of course, if they lose out, maybe I'll feel differently. But I feel like Arkansas's positioned them pretty well. It's not like they need a bunch of things to go their way. We're not going to have to be sweating it out on Selection Sunday to see if they make the tournament or not. But I do want to look at that and talk about kind of where Arkansas is projected, maybe their potential path to Omaha, what it's going to look like, what their regional might look like. And so that's going to be all fine and dandy, and I look forward to doing that. Before we get into it, though, I do want to remind you guys, we are brought to you by our friends over at Basis Health. Basis Health is changing the way healthcare is delivered by providing mobile medical visits at the comfort of your home. A doctor will come to your home for urgent care, primary care, IV hydration, and more. Basis Health, they are here for you when and where you need them most. You can learn more today at basishealth.org. Shout out to our guy, Dre. Have not heard from him in a while, but I hope he's doing well. And we appreciate his support and all he does for us over at Inside Arkansas. Not just the Baumbastic Podcast, but Pod at the Palace, Inside Arkansas Live, Pod of that nature, all that we've got going on. We appreciate him. We appreciate Basis Health. Take your health care seriously. You don't even have to leave your house. They'll come to you. You can learn more, like I said, at basishealth.org. So moving on. Okay, before we get into the projections, I want to talk a little bit about what Dave Van Horn said at the Swatters Club yesterday. I had not seen this. We were doing the show at El Mezcal. I had not seen the Swatters Club stuff until after I recorded Baumbastic, which is probably a misstep on my part. But and it's not like Dave said anything super groundbreaking. I did allude to Parker Coyle being basically, I don't know, reported as a stretch, but Dave indicating that Parker Coyle would be back, would be available for LSU, would be on the roster. That's a notable development. That's big news that we've been kind of waiting on for a while now. When we first heard that Parker Coyle timeline, we heard maybe 4 to 5 weeks. I think it's going to wound up having been 6 weeks overall. I'm not here to complain about it. We know what we're getting out of Parker Coyle. It's not like we needed to rush him back and ramp him up or anything. He's not one of these big power arms that you need to really take great care of. And it was a back injury also. So probably feel pretty good about that. I'm good with him taking his time to get healthy, do what he's got to do. A guy that has plus command, has always been a great strike thrower. I have no doubt he's just going to hit the ground running. And so we'll see what his return looks like, what that means for this Arkansas bullpen. That's going to be exciting. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the week. Dave was also asked about Logan Maxwell, who he said is kind of, he didn't definitively say he's 1,000% back. He's going to be playing against LSU. Honestly, the situation there has always been day to day. I mean, this is a hamstring injury that's been bothering Logan Maxwell for multiple years now, going back to his time at TCU. It's never really been 100%. I mean, even in the fall at Arkansas, when he first got on campus, it was something that was bothering him. And so it's kind of a day-to-day, how's he going to feel type of thing. They've tried to buy him some valuable rest here in these last couple weeks. Hopefully that will help him. And Dave said it really all along. They don't want to just play him just to play him. If they're going to play Logan Maxwell, they want it to be the Logan Maxwell they know and love. The one that's hit 9 or 10 home runs for Arkansas already this year, was one of the most impactful bats in the lineup. They would certainly love to have his presence back there in the middle of that order, can handle the bat, doesn't strike out a ton, hits the ball over the field, hits for power, takes his walks. Like, certainly a guy you want back. Defensively, I mean, I don't think he's a massive upgrade over Carson Bowles necessarily, but he's got some experience out there. I'm sure they would like him back in right field as well. Dave did say on Thursday when they go and practice in Alex Box Stadium, Logan Maxwell's going to have to show Dave that he can really play the outfield. Going to have to show Dave that he can really run around and that he's not limited. He's not being held back. And we spoke about it here before, that there's been several games this year where Logan Maxwell has been pulled mid-game, whether it's him limping, him kind of taking his time getting around first base, him taking his time running the ball down in the outfield. And so I'd imagine Dave's going to be keeping a keen eye on him, making sure he's really 100%. At the very least, it does seem like he's going to be a pinch hit option. And Dave even pretty much said if it doesn't go too well at practice, he might just be a pinch hit option. And so I think at the very least, he's going to be on the roster, will be on the trip, will be available. But we'll see if he's really fully back to 100%, if Arkansas lets him go. One thing that I did think was interesting, Dave was talking about LSU's Friday night starter, Cade Anderson, one of the best arms in the country, one of the better arms in the SEC, in the draft, all that. Big left-handed pitcher who's, I believe, second in the SEC in strikeouts. You would think big left-handed pitcher, okay, that's probably a time where you would rest Logan Maxwell, your left-handed hitting right fielder. Dave said it looks like the lefties actually hit Cade Anderson a little bit better than the righties, which you wouldn't necessarily expect. But I thought that was interesting, and so we'll see if that affects anything, if maybe that's why they want to get his bat back in the lineup. Maybe they DH him. I don't know. I don't imagine Wehiwa Aloy is going to play right field in Alex Box Stadium, but you never know. And so it's going to be fascinating. And Carson Bowles, by the way, has done a pretty good job. And so Not a guy that Arkansas is like dying to get out of the lineup by any means. We'll see how that situation plays out. Do not believe we got a Gabe Frazier update, but Dave did talk about Hunter Dietz a little bit, a guy that by this point, I'm sure some of you are starting to wonder if Hunter Dietz is just a figment of our imaginations, if this is a real piece that is going to come back and help Arkansas. Dave said they would have really liked to have played that midweek game last week, been able to get Hunter Dietz his first outing of the year, kind of work him back. But Dave was like, look, man, we've reached the point in the year where we're kind of waiting for that perfect time to put him in. It's not really going to happen. If it were going to be, it would probably have been Friday night when it was 9-0. But Dave was asked about that specifically and was like, we didn't want to mess around game one. We didn't want to risk flipping the momentum back to the Texas dugout. We really just wanted to get that game one, move forward, and then kind of assess from there. But with Hunter Dietz, now that the time is kind of running out. I mean, there's 2 weeks left in the regular season. If you want to get him in, now would kind of be the time. And so we'll see what that situation looks like. I do think it's possible he makes his debut in Baton Rouge. And if he does, it could just be a left on left, come and get 1 or 2 guys out. Could be just 1 inning if they find a situation that's great. I don't really care at this point, man. I just want to see Hunter Dietz. Would love for the kid more than anything. Like, he's had to work his way back. I'm sure this hasn't been a fun process for him. I mean, this is a very talented guy who probably saw his college career going differently. It would be great to see him get back to action and go out there and help Arkansas the way that we know he's capable of doing. And so, and again, this is a big time power arm that, like, you're looking for all the help you can get this time of year on the mound. Arkansas is going to get a key left-handed arm in Parker Coyle back this weekend, but you can never have too many lefties that throw 98. And so would really love to see if Hunter Dietz can get back to helping Arkansas. And honestly, it's just like our imaginations right now are just running wild. You get him out there on the mound, maybe see what you've got. You can work from there, man. But I think it's kind of going to be an interesting X factor to monitor down the stretch. That being said, I have been saying that for like a month now. So who knows if it's ever really going to happen, if they're ever going to really find that ideal situation to get him back in the mix, get him back in action. But that's what we heard from Dave Van Horn. He had a very good vibe about him yesterday. It was good. It's always good to hear from the head hog, but he had a very confident, like calm demeanor. And he basically said that he felt like Arkansas benefited a lot from that week of rest, which we talked about last week, that maybe getting that midweek game, aside from the Hunter Dietz aspect, maybe getting that midweek game canceled wasn't the worst thing in the world. Dave said he can see it at practice, can see it at workouts. The team just has a little bit more energy about them. The dog days are over. They now can sniff. When the games start getting more important, the team can usually sniff that out. It can be a grind, the entire baseball season, trying to stay locked in for 365 days. But once you get to this time of year, you should have no issues with motivation. I don't anticipate the Arkansas Razorbacks are going to be lacking for motivation as they go down to Baton Rouge and play in a venue that is really one of the best. I mean, Duty Noble actually probably is the best college baseball venue these days now with their upgrades. And, it's a brand new stadium. And so we'll see some other teams catch up. But Alex Box, I always like going there because it feels like it almost feels like a cathedral. Like it's the scale of it is really big. And so it always feels like a big game when you're there. You get the crowd singing, calling Baton Rouge. It's going to be a good time. And so looking forward to that. I want to pull up now this D1 baseball projected field of 64. There was another one that came out, I believe On3 had Arkansas as the number 4 overall national seed, had them lined up with Oregon State as the 13th seed there. So that would be a little bit interesting. But I do want to take a look at D1 baseball. And I'm not just saying that because I'm hoping to get Kendall Rogers on the podcast. You guys have heard me say it before. D1 baseball is kind of the creme de la creme when it comes to college baseball coverage. So I'm not saying, hey, these guys are 1,000% right. This is how the NCAA tournament's going to be. But when those guys say something, I usually listen. I usually keep an eye on what they have projected. Now, let me see if I can do this without messing it up and without completely ruining the show and ruining the audio and everything. Let's see if we can add this. Let's see. Add to stage. Boom. Okay. Now, hopefully you guys can still hear me here. But this is the D1 baseball field of 64. For you, those that are not watching on YouTube, I will try and read out as much as I can, or at least the important stuff. So there you have the bubble. The teams that are on the bubble, that Kansas State team that Arkansas lost to earlier this year, their first loss, they are the last team in, or one of the last 4 in. Kentucky, Iowa, Xavier there. The Michigan team that Arkansas beat that same weekend, they are in the first 4 out. And then 4 to watch over there. Nothing really crazy. You move on down. Texas is still listed as the number 1 overall seed here in the Austin Regional. They're lined up with the Tucson Regional, where you have A&M. So this lines up kind of perfectly. This is fascinating because you could have a Texas versus Texas A&M Super Regional. Matter of fact, I think if this ends up being the draw, I think Texas A&M would maybe even be like favored to win that Tucson Regional. That's a pretty good draw for them. Texas gets Kansas State, one of the last 4 teams in their regional, a UTSA team that's also having a really good year. And of course, Oral Roberts, we are familiar with those guys. We know what they're capable of. Arkansas, I believe, played them at least once this year. So that could be a fun one. I'm a little surprised that Texas is still like unanimously number 1 in all these polls and still unanimously picked as the number 1 overall seed, because, I don't necessarily view them that way, but the resume does speak for themselves. But moving on down, you have D1 baseball with Arkansas as the number 2 overall national seed. And again, guys, D1 baseball had Arkansas ranked at number 7 in their top 25. And if you remember, I said, this doesn't mean anything. They will tell you how they feel about Arkansas later in the week. We have now reached later in the week. This is where D1 baseball sees things coming up. They had Arkansas at number 4 last week. The sweep over Texas did not move Texas down, but it did move Arkansas up. I think seeing Arkansas at number 2 here. Now, again, D1 baseball is not the authority on this. Like, they're not the only ones that have a clue. Like, I'm not guaranteeing that they're right. This leads me to believe that Arkansas is pretty much a lock for a national seed. And we'll see. I mean, you're playing 2 really good teams. So it's, Arkansas could very well go 0-6, in which case maybe I'd feel a little bit differently. But I think even 1-5 might still be enough for Arkansas to wind up getting that national seed. I want to pull up the SEC standings real quick, actually. You see Arkansas there at number 2 in the SEC standings at 17-7. Georgia, a couple games behind at 15-9. They, of course, own a series win over Arkansas. LSU, who we're about to see, they're 15-9. Let's say Arkansas gets swept by LSU. So they fall to 17-10. And then let's say Tennessee comes into Baum Walker and takes 2 out of 3 from Arkansas, which would have Arkansas finish at 18-12. They would go 1-5 and finish 18-12. You look below Arkansas, of course, LSU and Tennessee would likely be moving above Arkansas. Perhaps Georgia does as well. Vanderbilt's sitting there at 14 wins. Are they going to go 4-2? Are they going to go 5-1? And even if they do, Arkansas owns a series sweep at Vanderbilt, who, by the way, is projected as the number 8 seed in this D1 projected field of 64 I'm looking at. Auburn, Alabama sitting there at 13-11. Are all these teams really, even if Arkansas goes 1-5, are they all really going to pass Arkansas? This field of 64, by the way, has 6 SEC teams in it. And so I really do feel like it's as simple as, if you're in the top 5 or 6 of the SEC, you've got a very, very, very good shot to be a national seed, particularly when you have a top 5 RPI, which the Arkansas Razorbacks do have. And your strength of schedule is all good and all that. And Arkansas's RPI and strength of schedule are not going to go down from playing LSU and playing Tennessee. I feel like Arkansas is in a good spot here. If the season were to end today, you'd have Dallas Baptist as the number 2 seed in the Arkansas in the Fayetteville Regional. We've seen this happen before. We've seen this Dallas Baptist team a good bit. They're playing some good baseball. They're pretty dangerous. I maybe would not want to see them. Kansas, I was a little surprised to see Kansas a 3 seed. I feel like Kansas would be one of the more dangerous 3 seeds in the country. I don't love that draw, and I certainly don't love having Missouri State, who's already beat Arkansas once this year, as a 4 seed, not to mention Arkansas ducked them last week. I don't know if I love this draw necessarily. I think this is actually a worse draw than the on-3 projection, which had Arkansas as the number 4 overall seed. But, it is a regional. They do try and keep some of those nearby teams. It would be kind of funny for Arkansas to have a chance to beat Kansas in the postseason in baseball after beating Kansas in technically the postseason in football a couple years ago, beating them in the postseason in basketball 2 out of the last 4 years, and then beating them in baseball would actually be pretty funny. No purple teams, which is nice. And if this were to be true, you'd be lined up with the Los Angeles Regional hosted by UCLA. You got UC Irvine as a 2 seed. Arizona State, always a fun program to keep up with. They're a 3 seed in this regional, and San Diego, who beat Arkansas back in 2018. They would be the 4 seed in that Los Angeles Regional. And so potentially setting up for an Arkansas versus UCLA super regional matchup. That would be a pretty fun one. Moving on down, we'll just kind of make our way through this field of 64. Not going to go in depth on every series, but just kind of glancing at it. Florida State is the number 3 overall seed. You've got the Tallahassee regional with Troy as the 2 seed. Troy's having an unreal year. Mississippi State firmly projected in the field after going and sweeping Kentucky, who falls to the bubble. Also a Mississippi State team who has fired their head coach and then all of a sudden plays the best baseball they've played all year. They're now firmly projected in the tournament. So you've got a up-and-coming, maybe getting hot Mississippi State team here in this Tallahassee regional. That's interesting. Bethune-Cookman there is the 4 seed. Lined up with the Corvallis regional, which, by the way, I mentioned how Oregon State was projected against Arkansas in the on-3 projection. You see them there at 14, Arkansas at 2. There's certainly a world in which the NCAA Tournament Committee could line up Arkansas and Oregon State very easily. Oklahoma's in this Corvallis regional. Oklahoma, by the way, has arguably the best pitcher in the SEC, one of the best arms in the entire country, Kyson Witherspoon, who might be one of the top pitchers taken in the draft. Any regional that Oklahoma ends up in, certainly something that people need to keep an eye on. You've got UConn there as a 3 seed in the Corvallis regional. Nevada there as a 4 seed. Moving on down, you've got the LSU Tigers as the number 4 overall seed here. The Baton Rouge regional lined up with the Eugene regional. I believe LSU and Oregon actually played in the super regional against one another back in would that have been 2021 maybe? Or maybe it was just the Eugene regional. But anyway, you've also got a TCU team that Arkansas's faced as a 2 seed there in that Oregon regional. They would be a very serious threat to win that one. LSU's regional sitting there with Miami at number 2, Southeast Louisiana at 3, Central Connecticut, who Hog fans should remember. They were at Baum not too long ago. I guess that would have been 2019. That'd have been 2019 where it was Central Connecticut. I think it was. And then Cal Poly and Fairfield there in the Eugene regional. Moving on down. I'll get through these quickly. Georgia is the number 5 overall seed here, and they're a team they've kind of risen to the top. They haven't played a ton of great competition here lately. Went through a little bit of a skid on a pretty big series win over Arkansas, of course. They're a little bit interesting where I've seen them kind of all over the place. I've seen them ranked number 1 in some polls. I've seen them projected as like a number 6, number 7. Like they're kind of all over the place. Will be interesting to see where they end up, Wes Johnson's squad. But their regional for this D1 baseball projection would feature Georgia Tech, Northeastern, and Tennessee Tech. You remember that year Tennessee Tech hit like 200 home runs and was leading the country and all that. And I think they beat Ole Miss in a regional. They would be lined up with the Morgantown, West Virginia regional, which features West Virginia, Duke, Kentucky, another SEC team there, and George Mason. West Virginia is another team, like really all these teams that you see in the 10 to 15 or 10 to 16 range. Those are teams to watch because they are teams that could be lined up with Arkansas in a potential super regional. And so I don't know I have not watched any West Virginia baseball this year. I know they're having a great year, as you can tell. But if you're looking for something to watch these next few weeks, these are some teams to keep an eye on. Moving on down, you got Auburn as the number 6 overall national seed. Really good to see the year that Butch Thompson is having. He's having a great year. He's done a great job with that Auburn program. Like they've had some years where it hasn't gone their way, but I've always been like, oh man, Auburn finished under 500, but they were scrappy. I always feel like they're better than their record shows. This year, that is not the case, man. Like they've been really good. This is also interesting because you've got Auburn as a 6 seed with Southern Miss, Stetson, and Bryant. That's a sneaky, like really hard regional. Some teams that have been in the tournament a lot over here in the last few years. And you're lined up with Coastal Carolina, which looks like, okay, yeah, that's maybe the team you would want to see in the second round. Certainly not as talented as most SEC teams. But then look at the teams that are in that Conway regional. NC State, the 2 seed, Florida, the 3 seed, and High Point 4. NC State and Florida, I don't need to explain to you guys how dangerous either of those programs are. That's going to be that. I mean, if these projections wind up being accurate, you're seeing some fascinating potential matchups. Coastal Carolina, by the way, I think Hog fans, they may wind up. I mean, hell, they might end up getting a national seed. They may wind up being maybe the team that if you're a Hog fan looking for an ideal matchup for the Supers, Coastal might be the team you want to kind of circle there. Going on down, this looks like a lot of fun here. You've got the Chapel Hill Regional with North Carolina as the number 7 overall national seed, hosting Ole Miss, Iowa, and Holy Cross. Holy Cross is another team that I've seen projected to Fayetteville. That would be more along the lines of a Central Connecticut giving, a random team that's making the postseason for the first time in forever, just throwing them, sending them as a lamb to slaughter, similar to NJIT. I wouldn't hate that. But you have them going to the Chapel Hill Regional here with Ole Miss and Iowa. Both of those teams, both Ole Miss and Iowa, I feel like would be live in this regional. Clemson, the 10 seed, hosting Alabama, Cincinnati, and Wright State. Really, no matter who wins either one of those regionals, you're looking at a fun potential matchup there. Could hypothetically see Ole Miss versus Alabama if both teams were able to pull the upset. So that's some fun stuff there. Moving on down to the final projection here, we have Vanderbilt as the 6th SEC team as a national seed, the number 8 overall. They're lined up with the 9 seed Tennessee. The Knoxville and Nashville regionals lined up together. That's fascinating. Of course, not a ton of separation between those two teams, both in resume and in just miles. You've got Louisville, Xavier, and Yale in the Vanderbilt regional there, and Wake Forest, East Tennessee State, and Kent State. Fascinating, by the way, Wake Forest, Tennessee. That would be the Chase Burns Bowl, I guess is what you could call that. And so I thought that was interesting. Thought you guys might get a kick out of seeing some of those names, seeing some of those different projections of where Arkansas is lined up, where they could wind up, or some of the teams they might be seeing. And so, look, this is not the end-all be-all. There's still 2 weeks of regular season action left. We'll see how it all plays out. But I do think it's very interesting to kind of look at some of these potential matchups, see what the road to Omaha may look like. And also, I don't know how you guys feel. For me personally, like as a, for like baseball, for this, I'm following it like a psycho. For most casual, when I'm like NCAA basketball, I would say I'm more of a casual college basketball fan. Sometimes I just I don't know how I feel until I see it on paper, until I see, hey, Arkansas might be lined up with Purdue or whoever. And then I kind of start thinking, could we beat Purdue? I don't know how we feel about that. So I just thought that might be interesting for some of you guys to see some of that and think, how would Arkansas feel? Could they fare well in this regional? Could they fare well in that regional? Would we want to see that team? And we'll be able to kind of have these conversations. We're going to continue to kind of keep an eye on some of these projections. Currently, I got to be honest with you guys. That regional that I just showed y'all with Kansas, Missouri State, and who was that second team? Oh, and Dallas Baptist is the 2 seed. I really didn't like that one as much. I'm hoping for a little bit easier of a draw, but ultimately you're going to get what you get, and we'll just have to make the most of it. It's going to be fun no matter what, and we'll see how Arkansas does this weekend if they can help their cases. If Arkansas goes out there and beats LSU this weekend, I think you then start really looking at, is Arkansas the number 1 overall seed in the tournament? I don't know how badly you guys want it. I don't know how badly I want it. Ultimately, the draw is really all you care about. You really just want to have the easiest possible path, whether that's at number 1, number 3, number 5, or whatever. Seems like number 3 is a cursed number. That's what Arkansas has been the last 2 years, have not gotten out of their own regional. So maybe we should avoid number 3. Arkansas was number, I believe, 4 or 5 in 2018 when they made their long run. So maybe that's a better number. I can't wait to see how this shakes out, man. Just reading off that got me fired up a little bit. So I wanted to talk about that. Now I'm reaching my 30-minute mark, which I said I wasn't going to go over. Real quick, I just want to shout out Wehiwa Aloy and run through some of these numbers. So Wehiwa Aloy's Player of the Year campaign is pretty simple. He's arguably the best defensive shortstop in the league. He's easily the best offensive shortstop in the league. He's no doubt going to be first team All-SEC at shortstop. And he's been as dynamic and well-rounded as any player, as any hitter in the conference. 4th in the SEC in batting average with a 376 mark. 4th in slugging at 718. He's 1st in runs scored at 68. 1st in hits, 76. 1st in total bases at 145. And it's not close between him and the next guy. I like that stat a lot. He's 12th in runs batted in, a little bit lower than you maybe would expect for a guy that's had his production. Wehiwa is also 2nd in home runs with 17. He's 4th in doubles with 16, which is awesome. That's how you end up leading the SEC in total bases, being top 5. He is the only player top 5 in home runs and doubles, which I thought was pretty cool. Just something to note there. One thing I'd also like to point out about Wehiwa, he's got a 977 fielding percentage, and now that number may not mean anything to you, and it probably shouldn't. I'm not a huge fan of citing fielding statistics whenever we're talking about individual players, because it's a little bit of a crapshoot. Doesn't tell the full story. I mean, he's a shortstop. The percentage doesn't really matter. But he was only made 4 errors all year. Only 2 of those have come in SEC play. He's fielding 977 overall and 976 in SEC games. Obviously, level of competition doesn't really matter with the glove, but I just think that was notable. For comparison, Jalen Battles, who we all agree the best defensive shortstop we've ever seen at Arkansas, and again, him committing more errors or having a lower fielding percentage doesn't mean he wasn't as good, especially when you take into account some of the plays that Jalen Battles was able to make. But Jalen Battles had a 971 fielding percentage and made 8 errors his final year at Arkansas. Again, it's not as simple as here are the numbers. Wehiwa's are better. He's better. But if you take into account the numbers, just the consistency that Wehiwa's had, some of the high difficulty plays he's made, the gap between him and Jalen Battles defensively really isn't as big as you maybe think, or as maybe we thought coming into the year. I would even say he's made a lot of progress there. Credit to the coaching staff, because when he came to Arkansas, he was not this guy as a defender. We can just confirm that. He made like 18 errors as a freshman at Sacramento State. Maybe that was just the field. Maybe it was just, I don't know. But he's certainly made humongous strides to his game as a defender just in the 2 years he's been at Arkansas. I think it's a big part of why he's such a hot prospect as a hot commodity as a prospect, is because there were questions about, could Wehiwa Aloy really stick as shortstop? I think he's going to have a chance to do that. Worst case scenario, I think he could play third base, could probably be an above average, like a really above average second baseman. But I think Wehiwa Aloy at this point is like an underrated defender. And now moving on down. So the only real competition I could find for Wehiwa in terms of SEC Player of the Year, 2 names jump off the page to me. Both are at Georgia, and both are guys that we've talked about, we've seen, we've played against these dudes. Rylan Zabrowski, their big right-handed hitter, he has missed 5 games in SEC play, so he's probably not going to make it. But I mean, in terms of just the batting average, I think he's hitting like 375, 380. He's got 16 or 17 home runs despite missing 5 games. I think the 5 games missed will wind up being why he's not in that mix, but he's certainly a name to look. Another guy that kind of was on my radar is Robbie Burnett, outfielder for Georgia. He leads the SEC with 19 home runs. He's also second in the SEC in stolen bases. He also has a higher overall OPS than Wehiwa Aloy. He is second in the SEC with a 739 slugging percentage and third in the SEC with a 493 on base percentage. Both of those marks are higher overall than Wehiwa on the year. He's also 6th in the SEC in runs, 55, 5th in the SEC in total bases, 122. He's worked more walks than Wehiwa. He's got 39 walks. That's 5th in the SEC as well. The reason why I still think, looking at the numbers, they're pretty close. Like we'll argue for our guy. Georgia can argue for their guy. It's pretty close between Wehiwa Aloy and Robbie Burnett. The reason why I think Wehiwa gets the nod here, when you look at their numbers just in SEC play alone, it's not a thing where Robbie Burnett sucks against SEC competition by any means. He's hitting 291, was slugging 616. He's got an OPS 1.051 in SEC games. He's hit 7 home runs as well in SEC play. Has only stole 5 bases. So of his 16 stolen bases on the year, 11 of them came against non-conference competition, which I do think is kind of notable, because I think if you're making the case for Robbie Burnett, the stolen bases would probably be a big part of it. He's 5 for 7 in 24 SEC games on the stolen base front. Yeah, maybe not what I would use. If that's the basis of your argument, it's a little bit tough to make because he hasn't done a ton of his damage in SEC play. Wehiwa in SEC games, higher batting average, higher on base percentage, higher slugging percentage, more home runs, fewer strikeouts than Robbie Burnett. Wehiwa hitting 353 in SEC games, slugging 676. That's a 1.118 OPS overall. The 9 home runs, which is really remarkable. Over half of Wehiwa Aloy's home runs for the year have come in SEC games, which I do think is notable. For Robbie Burnett, it's the opposite. About a third of his home runs for the year come in SEC games. Less than a third of his stolen bases come in SEC games. So you add it all together, the numbers are pretty close. Wehiwa Aloy plays a more premium defensive position, even though the Georgia Bulldogs did beat Arkansas in a series, is on a better team overall, a team that's probably going to finish higher in the SEC standings. We'll see how these next 2 weeks go, but as it stands today, I think Wehiwa Aloy is the favorite to win SEC Player of the Year, which is pretty cool. I mean, hell, there's been some years, that 2022 Arkansas team that went to Omaha and almost won it all did not have a single player on an all-SEC team, first or second team. They had a couple all-SEC freshman guys, but 0 first or second team all-SEC performers. Arkansas is going to have a few of those this year, and they just might have the best player in the whole damn conference, which is exciting. And I thought you guys should know that. And so I said it was going to be short. It ended up not being that short, but I appreciate you guys for sticking it out with me. That's all for today's Baumbastic Podcast. We got a special episode coming tomorrow with my boy Matthew Beck. Be sure to check that one out. I think you'll enjoy that one. We're going to have a good time. But other than that, we're looking forward to the weekend. Can't wait to get back to action for this Razorback baseball team. Already can't wait to watch this team play. I don't know how you feel. I cannot wait to watch Arkansas play. I'm excited to get back to it. And so looking forward to breaking down that Arkansas LSU series. We'll have more on that in the coming days. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Let's have a great Tuesday and let's have a great week.